What got you there with Sean Delaney? What got you there with Sean Delaney? What got you there with Sean Delaney? What got you there with What
Got You There is all about learning from the journey experienced by some of the world's most interesting and successful people. Kamal Ravikant is one of those people. Kamal has trekked to one of the highest base camps in the Himalayas, meditated with the Tibetan monks in the Dalai Lama's monastery, earned his US Army Infantry patch, worked with some of the best people in tech startups in Silicon Valley, and become a best-selling author. These experiences, combined with almost dying a couple of months ago, have shaped his mind into who he is today. His new book, Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It, is a collection of thoughts on what he's learned, what worked, what didn't, where he succeeded, and most importantly, where he fails daily. This conversation dives into entrepreneurship, health and fitness, mindset, and so much more.
Making change transpire. That's the mission behind the most amazing tasting protein bar brand taking the nutrition industry by storm. That brand, they're MCT Co, and they make the most delicious, keto-friendly, all-natural collagen protein bars. If you're obsessed with the quality of food going into your body like I am, then head out and pick up these amazing bars jammed with 10 grams of collagen protein. They only have 2 to 3 net carbs, no added sugar, and loaded with high-quality MCT oil for the healthy fats from coconuts. Whether you're busy running the kids around from activity to activity, a professional athlete, or just someone looking for a great-tasting convenience snack, do yourself a favor, head to mctco.com and use code WGYT for 20% off your order.
Kamal, welcome to What Got You There. How you doing today?
I'm actually really happy to be on here as we were talking about earlier. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, an interesting journey the past few months for you, to say the least. How are you feeling overall right now?
Well, look, as we were talking earlier, 2 months ago, literally, it was October 2nd. So today's December 1st. So 2 months ago, I was basically dead on an operating table, like an emergency surgery. After having a surgery 12 hours previous, so there was a complication afterwards, and then recovering in a hospital, and then recovering at home, and basically rebuilding my body again. So given all that, I feel pretty damn good.
If you didn't have enough life experience prior to that incident on October 2nd, you certainly do now. This is going to be a wide-ranging, fascinating conversation. Yeah. So many things I want to discuss. But let's start at the beginning. I know in the past you've talked about bookending your day. So I'm really intrigued about routines and how you begin your day and also how you culminate your day.
Oh yeah, that's a concept that actually I came up with when I was building startups. Because startups can become all-encompassing. Like one moment you wake up, you're on email, or you're just fighting fires. Till the moment you go to bed, you're on email. Especially if you're the founder, right? You do everything from like wash the floors to make sales calls to hire people to what. No matter how big it gets, as a founder, you kind of like always stay that way, and that's also leads to some of the unhealthiest things that founders fall into. And any entrepreneur, anyone who's ever worked hard at something understands that it becomes an obsession. So I came up with this concept to myself of like, look, I was going to bookend the day because I'm a writer. So I love that concept. I love that metaphor anyway, where the very beginning of the day and the very end of the day would be nothing about work. And it would be about actual improvement in the sense the first half hour of the day and the last half hour of the day, no phone, no email, basically not consuming anything that would actually was related to what I was doing during the day. So it was either like, morning would be more like, hey, I'm going to go get up. I'm not going to read an email. I'm going to go work out, or I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do something that's purely for myself, for my inner self. And at night, I would usually I didn't allow myself TV or anything like that. Not that I watch much TV. So I would actually read. And I would read not work-related stuff, but stuff that would actually improve me. So it was all like just about making myself better on the inside, because it was all just reading and learning, and also maybe meditating and thinking. And so that became a concept I kept with myself. Anytime I'm doing anything really hard that involves a lot of my time and my mind, I do that. And it works really, really well. Honestly, lately, I haven't been that good at it because I'm just in kind of healing mode. My body's healing. My body's recovering. So I'm resting a lot anyway. In fact, I'm bookending too much, and I'm looking forward to just getting more and more back in the game. But yeah, that's a concept that's worked great for me when I share with my team. It really helped them. It's very simple. First half hour, last half hour is yours, and it's for your mind and your spirit.
Two things I love about that are the simplicity element, and then also how it helps you stay in balance and in check. And I've done something similar in my life, and I just know it sets me off on the right start for the day, and then also culminates it. I'm really intrigued, though. You mentioned that this came about when you were working with startups. Was this out of necessity? Were you just grinding away too much?
Yeah. And it leads to burnout. Burnout can happen, years down the road, happen, it depends on the people, it depends on where you are. But yeah, it came out because I was less effective because I was always on. And you think because you're always on, you're more effective. It actually turns out when you take these breaks and just like feed your inner self, you're better. And you're actually you wake up with better ideas. You're just better. So it came out of necessity because I was just driving myself too hard. And I'm a big believer in one thing I've always worked on, as we talked about earlier, is mindset and on just improving my insight. And this was okay, I need to focus on my insight in the very beginning of the day and the very end of the day. And the rest will take care of itself. So yeah, it did come out of necessity.
You mentioned the mindset, and I'm thinking when you're sitting down in the morning, how deliberate are you in your practice?
Very. The morning for me is relaxing, meditating, maybe thinking about the day and who I want. One thing I've started doing recently is I sit there with my coffee and I meditate, and then I take a little time to think about who I want to be today, like the man I want to be today, and just kind of make a little mini commitment to myself to be that man. And then I just check in with myself during the day. Am I being that man? If not, I kind of calibrate and do. It's nothing hard and fast and fancy, but it's just a little simple, a little commitment I made to myself that morning. So I'm actually pretty meticulous about this, and it makes the rest of my day better.
I love that concept, who I want to be today. Can you dive even deeper on that? Are you thinking of specific people you're trying to emulate, or just your own self?
No, that's a great question. No, we all have heroes, but no, it's the man I want to be. For example, I'll give you lately, my priorities have been more, about healing, right? And getting back to getting back to fighting shape and all that. So it's been more internal stuff. For example, today, it was as I was meditating and I was thinking about, us doing this interview, and I was just thinking, after my meditation, the man I want to be today, what do I want to focus inside? And I thought, today I want to be a man who lives gratitude. Now, it sounds cliche, right? Gratitude. Everyone says it, you can't hit Amazon without coming across 500 million gratitude journals, right? But I'm talking from more of a visceral place. Look, I come from a place of being a doer, right? So I don't like talking from theory. After having almost died in a very painful and a very messy way, I'll tell you, man, you start to feel some gratitude. You just do, but for silliest things. And I don't want to lose that because it's a beautiful feeling. It's actually a feeling that I walk around and it feels really good to feel gratitude. So I don't want to lose that. But I've also learned, man, the mind is a freaking monkey. And if you leave it untamed, it's going to go just run around and scream and throw bananas at everything. So today was look, I got to go back to actually making myself feel gratitude. And it's very simple. We manufacture our own feelings. So I'll do something that we'll get later on into the book. But I take a practice from the book and I just apply it to this. So I'll just pause during the day at times and I'll take 10 deep and purposeful breaths. And in the in-breath, I'll just make myself feel gratitude. And for what? It doesn't matter. I could feel grateful for whatever in the moment. I could feel grateful for the sake of feeling gratitude. I could just feel gratitude because it feels good. And what I'm doing is I'm just layering that in. I'm becoming the man who feels gratitude. And you know what happens? You start to think from that place. You start to act from that place. It's very interesting, but if you just focus on the feelings, on creating those feelings within yourself, and starts to become a regular pattern, you start to become from that place. So it was very simple. It wasn't I'm going to be the man who's going to be the badass at the gym. I'm going to be, no, it's internal. Today I'm just going to be a man who feels gratitude. That's simple.
Yeah, the mind's a powerful tool. I'm really intrigued about this in terms of compound interest. And is this something that you've discovered the more you do, the easier it becomes and the more gratitude you feel throughout your life?
Yeah, I discovered this with the love yourself practice. That's another one that I learned out of desperation. And I realized after a while, they start to do these, almost like start to make yourself feel a certain way. And eventually those patterns, those loops start to run on their own. And when that happens, your mind just kicks in and just does more and more of it on its own. You're just creating new mental grooves, new neural pathways. It's a physical thing. It's also an emotional thing. I mean, and the fact that the biochemistry, your brain is actually creating, the classic thing, neurons that fire together, wire together. Well, the deeper and more strongly you do it, the stronger the groove and the more it's going to happen. So this actually is, compound interest is a great way to put this, because I do say, like, to tell people this compounds over time in ways you don't even understand. Like, your thoughts start to come from this place, your actions start to come from this place, your life starts to come from this place. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I feel like it's really hard for a lot of people to start implementing these things, though. So if you're someone who's tough with time and you're involved in a startup or another business and just taking a lot of hours, are there any frameworks that you're able just to build in besides the morning and the night to help you experience some of these things?
Well, look, fundamentally, our mind's going to think whatever it's going to think. It's on all day, right? And I'd say majority of the time it's not on in a useful way. Most of the patterns and loops we're running are not actually the ones that we wish we were running. Sit through a meeting sometime and then see how much of that time was actually spent focused on the meeting, or just like daydreaming, or doing silly things, or like worrying or whatever, right? So it's not like we don't have the time. So it's actually putting in, so the framework, like the 10 breaths, is a beautiful and simple mental framework. As long as you're around, you're going to be breathing. So all it is taking throughout the day, like whenever I'm, catch myself lost in something or whatever and I have a moment, I'm going to just take these deep and slow and purposeful breaths and make myself feel what I want to feel. And not do different things all throughout the day, but pick one thing. That's one thing I've learned. Like, you want to create like these patterns and these pathways that get just deeper and deeper and deeper. So you do it over a period of time. And look, sitting in a meeting but tuning out, but you tune out anyway, and making yourself feel love for yourself, or feeling gratitude, or feeling joy, or feeling blessed, or whatever you want to feel, feeling happy, you can do that. And it's great. It's just good for you. So like, that's a very simple framework, but all of it actually comes from something I fundamentally believe in, which is the power of commitment to the self. Like, we can go through, we can decide to do all this, but look, if we're not used to it, especially with the mind is unruly. If we've never really been taught to train the mind, it's not going to happen. We may do it for a day or half a day or a couple of days, but then we're going to fall off the wagon. So everything, I think, starts from commitment to the self. So I sit down and actually make a commitment to myself about who I'm going to be. And I usually always do it from an internal place. I've done it for external things, like commitment in fitness, for commitment in, nutrition, commitment in building companies or relationships or whatever. But I really am a big fan of internal commitments, because it all starts from within. You fix your inside, the outside works. So, the biggest framework is actually making a commitment to yourself. So what I usually do is I usually will come up with like one core commitment, and I will write it down to myself. And I will write it down to myself as a vow. And it's a vow I'll look at every day and just remind myself to bring myself back to my North Star for that vow. And you should do it for 30 days. And for those 30 days, I got to live this. I won't live it 100%. I'll fail most of the time, but I will succeed more often than if I hadn't done this. And that will actually transform my inside, which will transform my life. And then I've recently started doing this daily commitments to myself, which is just a subset of the original vow. And just reaffirming, and then just checking in with myself. How am I doing during the day? Or just remembering, like later on I'll be if I am at the gym, I'll remember, like, look, I'm committed today to be a man of gratitude. So like in between sets, I'll probably be sitting there feeling gratitude for being at the gym, which I couldn't do for a while after surgery. Right. And I don't want to take that for granted. So I think the commitment, and then just there's little small practices throughout the day create the mental framework.
Yeah, Kamal, something I've really taken away from you over the years is how powerful what you do is, and then how simple it is, simple and effective. So you have these life-changing type of questions you can bring up and practices, but they're so simple. So I love that. You brought up fitness a few times. It's something I'm fascinated by. I would love to hear, I know it's right after everything you've experienced the past few months, but what does your fitness routine and nutrition routine currently look like?
Currently, it's actually basically I'm just trying to be as clean as I can be and give my body high nutrition. So I'll just eat like high quality proteins like grass-fed meats and wild salmon, and then I make myself like these badass Rhonda Patrick style smoothies with everything green you can find under the sun in a smoothie. So just give my body like dense nutrition because my body's healing and rebuilding itself. And so just giving it all the building blocks. It's very simple. Barely do alcohol, and it's just very focused. It's like my body's in rebuilding mode and just give it that. Like I have no carbs. I don't see the reason to have carbs right now, especially I went off carbs while recovering from surgery because I couldn't go to the gym. So why put on extra weight I don't need to? So for nutrition, it's very, very simple, man. It's just like well raised meats, that are nutrient dense, and then just like organic, a lot of organic greens blended in a blend tech and just drink them. That's what I'm living on these days.
Yeah, no, I saw the smoothie in the fridge. That thing was that was incredibly green right there. So I didn't know the nutrition's coming in there. What about in terms of actual fitness, in terms of strength training, any other exercise routines you're currently implementing?
Well, okay. So before surgery, man, I was just doing heavy squats, heavy deadlifts, heavy rows, and heavy benches, and heavy militaries. And between that, you basically have a full body, great workout that'll just serve you for life. After surgery, I couldn't work out for at least a month, and then they finally said, you can go because it was in the lower abdomen. So that's that's your core, so you can't really screw around with that. And so this time I actually listened, and because normally otherwise I would get pretty impatient. And then they said you can go back, but you're not allowed to lift anything more than a 5-pound dumbbell. Well, you can do a lot with the 5-pound dumbbell, man. So I would just find a gym or a bench, and like whatever I wanted to do, I would just grab 5-pound dumbbells and do them so slow, so controlled that you're just building a metabolic overload. By the time you're done with like 15 reps, you're like done, right? And just wait. I have a timer. I never wait. I like to wait. Time between for like volume and low weight. I would just do like a timer of 45 seconds to a minute, and then just do another set, like 3 to 4 sets apiece. So now. Then, every week I would add like more than 5, or like a few days I add more pounds. So now I'm no longer doing 5 pounds, but I'm still doing very light and very slow, on the way up, on the way down, which itself is a particular kind of workout, a lot of people actually say you should do. So it's one I never did because I like doing heavy. So it's making me do a different kind of workout, but it's working well. Like I'm building muscle. I'm staying lean. I do miss lifting heavy weight. I miss squatting. But I'll go back to that. But that's a great thing. Like, no matter what, you can get a great workout in. That's, like you want to get to metabolic overload in the muscle, and there's so many ways to do it. So currently mine is like just low weight and high volume.
Kamal, something that's already so apparent to me is how adaptable you are. And in this conversation, I'm obviously hoping to learn a lot from you. I've already learned a lot throughout the years from you, but I want to know what your learning process is like, because it seems like anytime something is thrown at you in life, you're able to figure out a new way. So when you're starting a new skill, acquiring a new skill, what is the overall framework you're working on to begin?
I do have a mindset that whatever it is, I have a mindset that every problem is solvable. I don't know where that came from, but it's a mindset, and it's nothing that nothing that one needs to unlearn or learn. Just decide that everything is solvable. If you realize everything is solvable, then when you go at it, you will figure out the solution. So I just look at like, okay, how do I solve this? How do I solve this? How do I solve this? And then I just go at it, and eventually, you trial and error and you figure it out. I think that belief that everything is solvable is responsible for that, honestly.
I was lucky enough when I was growing up, my mom instilled that in me. And I'm really intrigued about what you were like when you were younger. And then correct me if I'm wrong, you were raised by a single mother, right?
Correct.
So what did she instill in you? I'm assuming a lot of these mindsets were evolved early.
Honestly, no.
Really?
Honestly, no. I came from a pretty rough childhood, a very rough childhood, actually. And mom was always working, minimum wage jobs. She was gone all the time, just trying to put food on the table, man. We were like low income poor. And so my brother and I were latchkey kids. We just read all the time, and we were just living in libraries. That was daycare. Mom would leave us in the library to go to work on days when we weren't in school. So I wasn't a confident kid. I was actually very shy, very insecure. So no, honestly, I didn't. This all came later. One of the things that really helped was honestly, like I went to college for a year. I had a full scholarship, and I left and I joined the Army, and I was an infantry soldier in the US Army. And one thing that really I think was a defining thing in my life was boot camp at 18 in Fort Benning, Georgia, right? And here I am, a city boy who's never even seen a gun, or walking around with an M16 and learning that. Where I'm with guys who used to hunt for food, which was such a foreign concept, and just being thrown into that, and every day being challenged. At 18, that's a gift that I gave to myself, because I did come out of that knowing that, look, I made it through that. Infantry boot camp is not the easiest boot camp the military's got. It's in fact, I'd say as far as boot camps goes, it's known as the hardest boot camp that the Army has. And I came out of that knowing, okay, I can handle this. I can get through this, and I earned my infantry blue cord, which is you get to wear in your Class A uniform, which I remember when my drill sergeant pinned that to me, how proud I was that I'd earned that. How you earn it by going through putting up with a lot of shit, boot camp. So, and that was like after 13 and a half weeks in Fort Benning in the summer in Georgia, which I wouldn't wish on anyone. And so I think that's one of the things that helped. And then after that, it was doing things like backpacking around the world with no money and not speaking the language of the countries I was in, and realizing I could figure it out. I could point and grunt and at things and eat. I could sleep in ruined churches, or I could sleep in wheat fields, and be okay. And then start to learn the language. It was all experiential, but honestly, it was older. It wasn't a childhood thing. And that's actually, in some ways, it was a gift, because I think some people get stuck in the fact that, look, I wasn't, we get stuck in our old story. Look, like this is what, I could get stuck in a victim story. Like, look, I came from this shit, that shit, excuse my language, but there was a lot of shit. And therefore I must be this way. I don't believe that. I believe in because I came from it, I have to be better. Because I came from it, I have a resolve now to actually be better, because I know what that was like, and that wasn't fun. And so honestly, I think it's one can come at it from different ways. I'm glad you have yours from childhood. I didn't. And I'm still adding on to it as an adult. I'm sometimes comes across things in my life. I'm like, oh yeah, that comes from childhood. Okay, let me reframe that and turn this around and be better.
Well, I have a feeling this is going to be the most important takeaway of this conversation: the ability to control the outcomes and your mindset. And you have a quote that just really resonated with me, and I couldn't stop thinking about when you were just talking there. If it scares me, there is magic on the other side. And I think you've discovered the ability to challenge yourself and realize how much more fulfilling life can be on that other side.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like so much of fear is just, I think most fear is just honestly a signal of where to go, but we actually look at it as a signal where not to go. I think one of the best pieces of advice someone ever gave me, this is early on. I was living in upstate New York, and I was thinking about moving out of Silicon Valley, and the dot-com boom was happening, but I had barely any money. And it was like I would have used up all my money to go there, not being completely unqualified to work in a startup. And back then, startups were a brand new thing, not knowing probably to get a job or whatever. But something we wanted to go because I didn't want to stay in upstate New York. And I was just going back and forth. And a friend of mine, we were at Gold's Gym, we were working out, and I was telling him this, and he goes, Kamal, leap and the net will appear. And I was like, okay. So I think the next day I bought a one-way ticket to California and sold everything I had and moved out. And it did. But it's almost like that was a very important reminder that you don't first look and create a net and then leap into it. You got to leap first. The net appears afterwards. And one thing I learned in startups is you leap first and you build a plane on the way down. You don't build a plane first and take it off the cliff. You're literally hammering and chiseling on the way down. That's just the way these things are,
Yeah, once again, your ability to add simplicity to things. I love that. Leap. And it will appear. That's just fascinating to me in terms of just reframing your mindset. I'm really intrigued about that. And we could view that as an ability to take on risk. And I'm just intrigued about how you view risk these days and your willingness to incur it.
You have to define risk, man. Like, would I want to go through another surgery after like the last two I went through? That's a different kind of risk. So would you mind defining what you mean by risk?
Yeah, I would say risk to me is going into something with an unforeseen outcome that could have a negative outcome for you.
Okay, I'll give you an example. So when I wrote the first version of Love Yourself, Like Your Life Depends on It, right? When most people don't know, though I talk about it more often now, is I've been writing books. I've been training myself to be a literary fiction writer for years and years and collecting rejection letters and just becoming a better and better writer. And then a company I was building imploded, and I lost everything I had because I'd self-funded that company for a long time before I took money, and I kind of like fell apart with it. And then that book came out of that experience because I wanted to write about how I changed my internal self, once again mindset, to actually change everything. And I wrote this little book mainly to shut up friends who were telling me to write it because I was sharing what happened with them, and I put it out, and I really thought I was going to destroy my career in Silicon Valley. At this time, I self-published in 2012, and no one was talking about this, especially in Silicon Valley, man. Like the TechCrunch was big, and it was all articles about, everyone was killing it. Everyone was, rah-rah, and people weren't talking about failure and what you learn from it. And so I wrote that little book, and I thought, okay, I'm never going to be able to raise money in this town again because here I am. If I were go start another company and just investors just to look online and see this book about this guy saying, well, I failed big, I lost everything, but look at me, I love myself now, hunky dory, right? But I took that risk. It was a big one, man. I really expected to have okay, I'm gonna have to figure out something else to do, and that book took off. And that book went on to become like a self-publishing success. And, I would run into CEOs and VCs, like big ones, man, big name ones, who would actually tell me at parties that this book really helped them because it was honest, it was true, and it was practical, unlike most books in that genre. So it was a big, big risk that I took. Now, why did I take it? I took it because I had something true to share. I had something I knew was real. And I think sometimes, when whatever you're doing in life, whether it's creating a business or you're putting something out, if you know it's true, if you know it's real, you have to do it. You have to put it out. That's where the magic is. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Please continue.
I think that's partially also what I mean by risk. If it scares me, I don't mean every silly fear. I mean the fundamentally true ones that we know, look, this is something that's true that I got to share with the world. This is something important. When we do that, magic happens. When we do it from a place of that. So that's one thing I've learned. If I'm taking a risk that's coming from that place, it's got to be fine. I'm doing that again with a newer version of the book. And I know it'll be fine because I know there'll be magic. I don't know what I can't predict what the magic will be, but I know there'll be magic.
How does self-belief factor into all this?
Well, self-belief's a big word, man. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Even if you don't believe in yourself, you just do it anyway. And then you learn to believe in yourself from the results. I think if we waited till we believed in ourselves or had full, conviction in ourselves to do things, we'd never do anything. If I believed in my ability to be in great shape, before I started working out, I never would have started working out. I remember the first time I worked out in college, I went and threw up. I was so embarrassed. I was a skinny kid, and like literally I went and threw up, and I think I didn't go back to the gym for a month, but I went back at it. Right. So like, I think self-belief matters less in doing things. It comes from doing things.
Huh. I feel like I think you're hitting on an interesting thread here, almost like building up that ability to work out. Is it about putting in those little efforts that compound over time to get back to that compound interest we were talking about earlier?
Yeah. And, picking things that are important to you. I was a skinny kid who was picked on. And so I just made a decision. I'm not going to be a skinny kid who's going to be picked on anymore. I'm going to be a guy that if someone looks at me, they're going to think twice about picking on me. It literally came from that, honestly. And you need some sort of motivation, right? We don't just go around and give ourselves our all to, idly do things. But when you have some motivation, and it can be something that's superficial as that. And then it became, I just wanted to look good, right? I noticed like I got more attention from women, when I was in better shape, and it became that. And then until ultimately it became my identity. Like, look, man, like after surgery, like I'm lying around and all I'm doing is like watching videos and working out and like learning how to do like low weight, high volume training. Because for me now it's who I am. Like I'm gonna, I'll live to my 90s and I'll be working out till the day I die. I'll have gone to the gym that morning, But it comes, yeah.
No,
I don't know if that answers the question properly, but
no, I don't know if there's going to be a right answer to that. But what you were just talking about, you're going to be working out the day you die, and you have a quote: "Day by day, I'm working to be better." It's a lesson in humility and patience, and I think you understand the long-term game. And then also, like you mentioned, the first time you worked out, you ended up throwing up. You also mentioned how you embraced the challenge of becoming a writer, and now you're a very prolific writer. What is your actual writing process like? I've never talked to you about this. I would love hearing what it's like for you, how you set that up.
That's a great question. It depends if I'm working on a book or not. If I'm not working on a book, like currently, I'm not. It's more like idyllic writing. I'm writing as I feel. I morely write to myself, just notes and little Word docs here and there about ideas and concepts that I'm playing around with. When I'm working on a book, here's my technique. Actually, I have a great technique and it works. I use, the Pomodoro Method.
Yes.
So I use that, but what I do is I'll have like a sheet of paper or a whiteboard or whatever, and every day I'll track how many Pomodoros I put in. And what happens is I'll just I'll put like for every Pomodoro, for every 25-minute sprint, I'll put like one slash. And after 4, for the 5th one, put a slash to the 4, the classic, just you see. So what that does is the next day I'll look at how many I did the day before, and naturally I'll want to do more. And so you'll see, like every time I've done this, every time I'm working on a book, you'll see after 3-4 days, all of a sudden the Pomodoro start to double and triple. And then it's almost like you're in a roll. Like, hey, I did 12 yesterday. I can't do 4 today. That's a failure. Even though when I started, I was doing 2 a day, right? So it's a little trick I use, and it works really well. So every time I'm on a book sprint, I'm working on a draft or whatever, every day I'm just putting in, because, creativity, you don't force it. I don't force myself to write beyond where I'm just not feeling it. But I'll give myself like, look, I'm going to start off with like minimum of 3 Pomodoros a day. And, that's like a little over an hour, right? So I can do that. I can sit in front of a blank page for an hour and just hammer stuff out. It doesn't have to be good. You just have to hammer stuff out. And then next day I'll give myself 3 minimum, but I'll notice that I'll just start to move. And before I know it, I'm doing 12, 15, 16, 18, 20 Pomodoros a day. And then I'm just writing all day. And I'm in that groove. And it works. It's very simple, but it's like I'm basically measuring. I have a system of like timed writing, and then I'm measuring it. And then I'm accountable to myself for a minimum, but I'm seeing that look, I'm just seeing that minimum increase, and then there's something in you, pride just kicks in, and I got to beat the day before. Before you know it, what seemed like a stretch like a last week now is normal. So you got to beat this new normal, and it just really works. I was actually come across these all the time in my notes app on my phone. All you see is these slashes, and I kind of laugh to myself. It's the same pattern each time.
It's so funny. You set the accountability and then you continually raise the bar. And I'm just sitting here thinking about ways in my own life where I can implement this strategy. I just want to make sure that the listeners are clear with the Pomodoro technique. You do 25 minutes on. What is your rest or downtime like before you start up again?
So basically, the Pomodoro method comes from a guy who basically, I think it's the best productivity method out there. Because it's so simple. He took a kitchen timer that was shaped like a tomato, hence the Pomodoro, and set it for 25 minutes, and you do whatever your task is, right? It could be anything. It could be business. I do it for work sprints as well, but you focus on that task and you do nothing else but that task, right? So if your Pomodoro is for making sales calls, you only make sales calls and nothing else. You don't stop in the middle, check email. You don't do internet, anything. Just focus for that time. And then you take a 5-minute rest, and then you go back at it, and you go back at it, and then you take a longer rest. What I do with writing is, once you're in a roll in writing, you don't want to stop. So I'll just continue. If I'm at the end of 25 minutes on a roll, I'll just continue on. But if I pass the 25 minutes and continue on, I can't stop until the end of that Pomodoro.
Oh,
right?
Interesting.
So sometimes I'll go 4, 5, 6, 7 without stopping, right? But because once I'm in it, I can't stop. Once I'm in that 25-minute sprint, the next 25-minute sprint, it's that kind of nice because it then keeps you pushing forward. And then eventually, at some point, I'm like, okay, I need a break. And then so at the end of that particular Pomodoro, I'll take like a 5, 10, 15-minute break, depending on how long I've been going for. If I've been going for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, I'll take like a half-hour break.
I love the adaptability there. And you mentioned not wanting to force the creativity. And I love the whole creative mindset and discovering how to tap into that even more. Are there certain things you've done that you just see your creative juices flowing even faster?
When I write in nature, it just, I've noticed my writing gets better faster. You know, usually if you haven't written for a while, or if you're working on something for a while, your writing's a little kludgy in the beginning. But you know that you keep at it and your brain gets more and more pliable, and then it just starts to flow. It's an any creative pursuit. If you don't do it every day, you start to get a little kludgy. But I don't do it as a regular practice every day. I do it more as once I'm working on a book. So, but it really works, man. It's a very simple one. It can be. I've used this in business a lot, actually. When I'm working and I don't feel like working on something, that's when I use it. Yeah, because it kind of like forces you into that constraint, you know?
We're all going to experience that in the business world. Anything else you do in terms of a business context? I know you brought up your time with startups. Anything with all the experience you have you'd recommend?
In what sense?
Just in terms of being able to go after something that's new, unexpected. You mentioned running a startup is like jumping out of an airplane and trying to assemble it on the way down. So are there any just overall frameworks or things you recommend to young entrepreneurs?
Any frameworks? You know, that's a good question. Honestly, there's no better framework than just jumping and doing it. It sounds silly, you know, but, you know, rather than preparing, because I meet a lot of first-time entrepreneurs and they're too over-prepared. And that's a sign, that's fear. You know, over-preparing is fear. Like they're not ready, or they're doing this to spend like months working on their deck. I'm like, well, but you could have gotten out and gotten 10 customers by now. And that's way more valuable than a deck, you know, for an investor. Or you could have literally built your product by now and just perfecting your deck and saying, no, I need to raise X amount of $1 million to build something that you literally can just use like open frameworks to build yourself. I think over preparation is actually the death of creativity or building anything great. You know, you prepare just a bit, but then you jump and you just start. There's no substitute to doing. You know, people want to build especially like everyone, you know, people who say like, oh, I'm going to build the biggest product, the best product ever, this, that, the biggest, best company. But I need to raise this much money. I need to hire these people first. No, you don't. All the best ones, they just started doing it, and they sort of then that draws people to them. If they went out and raised money, they did it fast. They got the deck, they got the pitch down, like what they need to do, and they just raise enough to just start going and building. And when you have something that starts to work, people naturally come at you. You know, it's the ones who don't who are the ones chasing for money. So right now, like there's a startup I'm helping with, and literally like the guy, I know people who are trying to raise like 5 times as much, but this guy, he's already like oversubscribed in a small round, and he purposely did a small round because he just wants enough to just pay his team for the next 6 months so he can like get the product out the door, because he knows when he gets the product out the door, it's going to do really well. It's going to bring a lot more money, right? It's better to be that way than no, I got to build this massive team or whatever and do all, unless you're building like, say, a pharma company, but that's a whole different thing. Let's talk about tech startups. So I think to young entrepreneurs, I would say, be careful of over preparation. That's fear. There's nothing beats action. You want to raise money, you want to impress people, you want to hire the right people, you want to bring the right people to you. Show them you're a doer who's been doing stuff, who's making results, who's getting sales, who's getting a product out there, who's getting customers, who's getting traction. You will you will have no problems raising money or hiring people.
Yeah, I've got my notebook next to me, and about 20 minutes ago during our conversation, in big letters, I just wrote doer ! And I love how you just approach things with that doer mindset. And we have a mutual friend and a few acquaintances, and I reached out to them for some questions and ideas, and one of them just said that you're his easy button when it comes to business and investing. So I'd like you to...
What does that mean?
It was just whatever was going through your mind, the way you could assess, articulate, understand business and investing, whatever you were doing, he was in on. And I'm just intrigued.
Oh, that's really nice. That's really nice to hear.
I think that's an incredible compliment. And so I'm asking for you to not be too humble and just put yourself in their shoes. And why do you think someone would say this about you?
I have experience. I have a lot of experience, and I've experience in a variety of things which I bring to the table. I'm not just someone who's been a tech guy. I've been a guy who's been in the military. I'm a guy who worked in hospitals doing clinical research, watching people die in front of him. I'm a guy who's backpacked around the world. I'm a guy who's climbed Himalayas. I'm a guy who works himself to be better. I'm a guy who understands people, who works hard to understand people. And all of that, it's one thing, to be great at anything or good at anything, we think we have to only do that thing. Yes, but we bring our whole life experience to it. So perhaps that's why, I take my life experience and bring it all to this. But also ultimately in investing, I'll tell you, I'll always look at it as a people game. What people do I want to back? It comes down to that. Often the startup or the company you back is not the one that exits. They change over time. It's the people. It's the founders. They actually set also the culture, and they also said you just know that these are the kind of people you'll want to back, and they'll figure it out. You're betting on people, and my focus is always on people, and maybe that's why your friend thinks I'm the easy button. I go for the simple stuff. I don't look at financial models. Like when they send me them, I'm like, please throw those away. You're a startup. Like you're not. This is not an MBA exercise. This, no offense, but it's not an intellectual exercise. You're like you're in the trenches. I want to see what you're doing. Who you are. Because if you can figure out the person in the trenches, that's all you need to invest.
Yeah, no, the people and then the simplicity. And this is another friend, someone that's actually you've worked with and helped them out. And they just love your simple but powerful question. And one of those that they just said could be the most important thing for them is the question, if you loved myself, what would I do? And I think when you truly start asking yourself that, it's just unbelievable the possibilities that opens up.
Yeah, that came from actually that's in the original version, and the deeper version is in the newer version of the book. If I love myself, I actually do it. If I love myself truly and deeply, what would I do? Right? It's a great question for making choices in the moment. And it's the if part that makes it possible. Because look, no one loves themselves truly and deeply all the time. A lot of us barely ever did it, But if you ask with the question, if you start with an if, that just presupposes that it's possible that let's hypothetically, if I love myself, what would I do? And then from that position, you make the choice. It makes things pretty clear and easy. Then it's up to us to make the right choice or not, but at least we're doing it consciously. And we start, because I think a lot of our time, choices are made unconsciously on just old habits and patterns. What this does is questions do a pattern interrupt, and then they actually make us choose. They're very, very powerful. This has been a great question. One can use it anything in their life, like anything in their life.
I think that's one of the most powerful things about the updated book, Love Yourself, like your life depends on it. And it's just so essential in terms of reframing some of the important questions a lot of us deal with in life. And so it's great. It's almost this guidebook that we're able to use. I'm really intrigued, though, as you're preparing for the book to launch on January 7th, everything you've experienced the past 2 months, how is this time different for you?
Well, I didn't really launch the book last time. All I did was I put it out. I hid it underneath the table, man. I really didn't think it was going to sell. I really just thought, it was going to be I was going to buy copies to give to people, and occasionally someone who needed it would find it. I've never done a launch, and even now I'm not really doing a launch. I'm doing podcasts. Because my energy, I'm not back to 100%, so my energy levels are limited. So there's no real like online offers or anything that authors normally do. I'm just more like, hey, let me reach out to good people who have an audience, and let me share my work. Though it's interesting because, I give everything to my books. When I write, man, I don't hold anything back. Like literally I bleed on the page, but I do that for a reason. I do that because I know the impact that my words have on my readers. I've seen that, I've seen that so many times. So I give it everything. And at this book, this expanded version, I worked so hard on it for a year. I gave it everything. And because I knew this book needed to be deeper based on all the interactions I've had with readers of the first version, and need to go like way more practical, way more nuanced. And so I did it. I worked really hard on it. And now I almost left the planet without experiencing it being out. I almost left the planet, exited the planet. I don't mean like going to Mars with Elon Musk. I meant like, like every human being before me, right? That would have been a cooler version. I almost left the planet without actually seeing it out and seeing the effects this version is going to have. And so with this one coming out, I feel a responsibility. Like, look, I know I've created something special. I know I've created the first version helped. This one's going to really help. And, I feel a responsibility just sharing it with the world, really getting out in a way that this book deserves. So that's actually different. I feel more of a responsibility to the book now that I'm here. I'm still alive. I'm kicking. I'm getting better. So like all my energy right now is just going to, okay, let me see who's got an audience that I can share this with, and just share this. People don't have to buy the book. I mean, just go check it out. It's like not everybody has to love themselves, but this is ultimately a book about making yourself better from the inside and how one man does it. That's simple, right? And I'm a fundamental belief in that, look, we're all human beings. If it works internally for one person, it will work internally for another person, just like meditation and all that, so the difference this time, I'm not really doing any book launches. Like there's no parties happening. There's no rah-rahs. It's just like me just going and sharing with audiences about what I've learned in life and what's in the book. And just getting out to the world and a strong sense of responsibility to this thing that somehow I got to be this person who got to be the creator of it, which still blows my mind.
Yeah, no, I did a terrible job wording that question, but the way you were able to articulate that was that's why you're the guest on the show. You were able to do this way better, so I appreciate that and just sharing. Sharing the authenticity. One other thing people are really interested in is they know you really enjoy Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
I love Rock. He's the best.
I would love to hear more about this for a second.
Yeah, it's funny. If you go on Twitter, you'll see like I only follow one guy, and it's The Rock. And I'll tell you why, man. It's because The Rock is the dude's baller. And then when I say baller, it's like it's a model of excellence, right? This guy works his ass off. Like he goes from industry to industry and owns it. And he works his ass off, and he's kind. He talks about being kind. He's really good to his fans. He loves his fans. He's got a great family life, and he's happy and he's smiling, and he's got like his workouts are off the charts. His workouts are legendary. No matter where he goes, he has a gym that travels with him where he's got to get up every day at 4 a.m, got to go work out for a couple of hours. Like the guy has, things that he believes in, he sticks to. He talks about keeping his word. He says, if I give you my word, it's done. I'm a huge believer in that. I'm a huge believer in the power of if you commit, you're in, that's it. and the guy, you can tell, makes commitments to himself and keeps it. And that, I think, is fundamentally the role model for excellence. So I love that. I mean, he, and he makes movies that are fun. Like normally, like, look, man, I can be an intellectual and I like certain kind of movies, but like, I gotta admit, I love Jumanji. I think I may have watched it 10 times, with The Rock, because it's just fun and entertainment. And he's very honest about it. He's like, I make entertainment, I make you feel good. And it's just how he lives his life. And if you look at his story, like, he wasn't always a success, man. Like, he actually at one point went through a point where he lost everything and had $7 to his name, and literally $7 to his name. Or he actually says $6 something cents, but he said he rounded up. And when he went on to wrestling and ended up becoming probably the biggest draw of all time. And now in film, the biggest draw of all time, his production company is called $7 Production. Never forgot where he came from. It reminds himself when his back was against the wall and he had nothing, right? And he went out to just commit and give it everything he had. So I think for me, like, that's one of the reasons why I just love the hell out of that guy.
Yeah, there's probably few people as inspiring, doing such great work, bringing smiles to so many people's faces. So that was really fun to hear you talk about that. One other thing I really want to hit on quickly, you mentioned when you were younger, you basically lived in a library. How much are you reading now? And are there any books that you just go back to time and time again?
Right now, I'm taking a bit of a break from reading too much because I'm actually playing around my mind and I'm doodling and I'm writing thoughts down, which a book may come out of. So usually when I do that, I try to not be influenced by others. I was actually reading writings from like old mystics. Mystics are like basically like the crazy ones in every religion. The Kabbalah came from Jewish mysticism. You have the Sufis from Islam. You have Christian mystics. You have Buddhists. You have Hindu mystics. They're the ones who actually came up with all the nature of reality stuff, the nature of the mind. And ultimately, the nature of reality always came back to the nature of the mind. And so I was just reading old like mystical writings I've been finding on the web, just trying to see what the patterns is. What is it? But I'm not someone who likes theory. I want to see how can I make it practical? How can I use it to make myself better? So I've just been doing a lot of exploration on that. But outside that, I haven't read any books in a while. I may read The Alchemist again, which is one of my favorite books of all time. And what's amazing is Love Yourself, which is coming out in January 7th, is published now by the same publisher of my favorite book of all time, The Alchemist, which is such a beautiful thing to experience. So as far as that, I'm listening to podcasts again, and but mainly just like old writings that probably no one's reading. Old obscure stuff, just to like see what can I use this to make my mind better. And what's interesting is one theme keeps on coming up from all these guys, whether it was like 5,000 years ago or someone 100 years ago or whatever. It's like they all say like the whole thing's an illusion. They all come to the same conclusion, no matter whether in the Himalayas, wearing monks' robes, or whether they're dancing, Sufi dances in the Middle East, whatever. They all say the whole thing's an illusion, and we just have to like. The mind is the one that is like refused to break from it. But as you start to, is when you get freedom. It's really interesting. The same thing. It's like the whole matrix, holographic universe, the whole thing. The same thing keeps on coming up across that's the one pattern I'm seeing.
Well, I'm glad I asked that question then and got that answer. I don't know if there's a better place to end on, and I'm just thinking back on our conversation around simplicity, that you have to be a doer, and just the embracing of the different challenges, because you never know what's on the other side. This is a conversation I enjoyed, and I'm so fortunate we were able to have it because of everything you've experienced the past few months. So Kamal, I cannot thank you enough for joining us on What Got You There. January 7th, love yourself like your life depends on it. Congratulations on the launch of the book. I can't wait to have this conversation again and just talking about the success and all the people that this has impacted.
I would love it. Thank you. And look, for anyone listening, I hope this has been of value to you. And I put a lot into this book, what I've learned in life, but all through the one theme of actually working on my inner self. So I think, I know you'll find it helpful. So I hope you check it out. It would mean a lot to me. I've really given everything to this book. And thank you all. And thank you for listening.
Yeah, no, it's apparent you've given it all, and everything will be linked up in the show notes. Anywhere else you want them checking out, Kamal?
No, you can just find me online. Twitter's good. Instagram's good. Amazon's good. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Your favorite bookstore's good.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, once again, thanks so much for joining us on What Got You There.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You guys made it to the end of another episode of What Got You There. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really do appreciate you taking the time to listen all the way through. If you found value in this, the best way you can support the show is giving us a review, rating it, sharing it with your friends, and also sharing on social. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Looking forward to you guys listening to another episode. Ode.